There are hundreds of fight promotions out there, but they're far from equal. At the very top levels, organizations provide the very best that the sport has to offer. However, they're only the tip of the iceberg.
When you make it to the UFC, now you in the big leagues.
Some athletes eventually outgrow their potential at the smaller leagues and then move into higher and more lucrative levels. And today, we're gonna unravel how the fight game actually works. To understand how fighters climb to the top of the food chain, we need to start at the very bottom rung of the ladder. So this is every level of fight promotion explained. Level 1 represents the small, local promotions that serve as the starting point to an athlete's career. While they may seem like the bottom of the barrel for talent at first, every fighter, no matter how big they eventually become, has to start somewhere. And unless you're already a decorated champion in another discipline, say an Olympic wrestler with multiple medals, or you're one of the Paul brothers, your combat sports debut will most likely happen at a small, regional promotion.
At the end of the day, every athlete in this sport has a similar journey to what I had. We take fights, we start on smaller promotions, and then, ultimately try to reach the top.
The regional scene plays a pivotal role in the sport. Legends come and go all the time, and fighting generally presents a shorter career time when compared to other sports. And smaller organizations are the main providers of new talent in combat sports. Even the UFC recognizes the importance of this period for an athlete. Throwing a young buck directly into the lion's den that is the UFC roster would be economic suicide.
Take your time. You're 23, you got nothing but time, and we'll see what this kid's got in another, a year or so. Probably have 3 or 4 more fights, and if he's 7-0 and continues to do this, then yeah. But it's about having these smaller promotions in this country and putting on fights as many times as they can a year.
The entire concept behind Dana White's Looking for a Fight show was scouting for talent at the regional scene. And while Dana is known for being very antagonistic toward other promotions that could eventually rival his brand, the UFC is far less dismissive when it comes to the grassroots. LFA today is likely the primary venue for up-and-coming prospects in North America. So much so that the UFC partnered with the LFA on Fight Pass streaming deals, streaming the regional promotion to thousands of fans.
UFC Fight Pass has a bunch of farm sort of leagues where guys start out and then they wind up making it to the UFC afterwards.
Yeah.
LFA.
Yeah, LFA. LFA is one of them. That's a big one.
Several high-profile fighters today have spent time honing their skills at LFA in the past. The list includes champions like Alexandre Pantoja, Sean O'Malley, and Alex Pereira. But the fight game isn't just built in North America. Beyond the LFA, there's a whole world of regional promotions abroad that serve the same purpose. If you're the type who rewatches finishes frame by frame and argues about scorecards at 2 a.m., we built something for you. Octagon lets you rate every fight, break down every card, and argue with thousands of fans who are just as obsessed as you are. Links in the description. Go leave your ratings before the casuals catch up. Level 2 represents leagues that dominate their local markets, but still can't challenge the top dogs at a global scale. After all, MMA is as global a sport as it gets nowadays. Brazil, historically one of mixed martial arts powerhouses, has its own leagues. Since 2003, BJJ legend Waleed Ismail has run Jungle Fight, the biggest MMA organization in South America.
Waleed is a mixed martial arts legend.
He fights.
Dude, he fought in UFC 12.
Really?
Yeah, he fought Takahashi. Is that who he fought? Maybe it was 13. UFC 12 or 13. Dude, he choked out Royce Gracie in a jiu-jitsu match.
Brazil has one of the biggest fan bases in the world, and with that in mind, many other promotions have tried to enter the market in the past decade, but none could ever dethrone Jungle Fight. For context, in 2025, the promotion reportedly had over 27 million viewers in one of its events.
People are chomping at the bit to oversaturate MMA in Brazil. Have y'all noticed that? XFC has a deal down there. World Series of Fighting, I believe, has a deal down there, or they're trying to do shows down there anyway. Live event shows. There's already Jungle Fight down there and 1,000 other promoters. UFC is doing 1 billion shows down there, and they're all on Globo and Kombachi and all that stuff. Man, people are trying. There's like a gold rush in Brazil right now, and they are trying to oversaturate that marketplace as fast as they can.
Jungle Fight has been the biggest exporter of talent in Brazil for 2 decades. Lyoto Machida, Charles Oliveira, Jose Aldo, nearly every Brazilian legend has roots there. And while Jungle Fight leads the way in South America, another organization has carved out its own legacy in the UK.
Nice to get another submission win on my record, my first finish for Cage Warriors. I was saying I wanted to finish for Cage Warriors, and now
I'm just gonna build on that and keep finishing people till I get to the top.
Far from just another feeder league, Cage Warriors is one of the longest running promotions out there. It holds an enormous influence in the British scene, so much so that the organization became the first to be recognized as an MMA organization by the UK government. Outside of Darren Till, who for some reason came up in the Brazilian MMA scene, pretty much every notable fighter from the UK came from Cage Warriors. The list includes guys like Paddy Pimblett, Michael Bisping, Tom Aspinall, and Conor McGregor.
I'm not just a striker, I'm everything. I'm an MMA fighter. I can do it all nowadays. Yeah, maybe back in the day. I'm learning every day. I'm not just a striker. Don't say that. I'm not just a striker.
While Jungle Fight and Cage Warriors are regional top dogs and have exported some of the biggest talent the sport has ever seen, the question remains, why do they never seem to grow beyond their role as feeder leagues? For all their success in producing champions, the rosters often end up thin and top heavy.
Gary looked good at Cage Warriors, but they all look good at Cage Warriors. I'm thinking at this point, I think it's just that they all look good at Cage Warriors, I'll be honest, guys.
At the end of the day, low-level promotions tend to make their bread and butter by developing young, up-and-coming prospects that will later join the big leagues. But our next level goes in the opposite direction. Rather than putting together the best fights, this tier is all about spectacle. And what if other fight organizations are not really trying to challenge the big leagues, but rather work their way around them to present something interesting and new? That is precisely where Level 3 is at. RAF, or Real American Freestyle, has done what seemed impossible, made wrestling entertaining to wider audiences.
The dark horse in all this is RAF, wrestling, because a lot of your creme de la creme, especially if you look at the champions now, they all have wrestling backgrounds. The reason they would go into MMA, wrestlers don't want to get punched in the face. Yeah. That's terrible. No. They want to use their skill sets and make money. Well, now you can. Now there's NIL deals in college, so there's guys at Penn State's making hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, guys at Ohio State, Iowa, Oklahoma State, and now RAF is paying guys millions of dollars?
Wow.
Well, I love it. Wrestlers are the best athletes on the planet. They're the best. I love them. Now they have an avenue where they don't have to get punched in the face and shill out for Dana White and the UFC.
The new organization invested heavily in a sport that's woven into American culture, creating one of the most interesting experiments in combat sports today. For years, wrestlers had only a few places to monetize their skills: the Olympics, a jump into MMA, with little in between. Now, the promotion is putting together Olympic athletes, MMA legends, and top collegiate wrestlers, creating one of the most compelling side attractions for fight fans out there.
It's crazy because RAF has got everybody on it.
Yeah.
They must have some good money.
RAF pays good money.
Wow.
Yeah, for the wrestlings, then I think like wrestlers never make like this money. How much RAF
no
pay.
way.
Yeah,
and it's being ran with Eric Bischoff too, who is a legendary wrestling kind of organizer, producer. I had him on the podcast. He's a legend.
At Level 3, we have promotions that put together fun and interesting events while capitalizing on potentially viral moments. And given Arman Sarukian's extremely viral brawl during their last event, it's safe to say RAF has a pretty good knack for entertainment.
Is over. Arman Sarukian is and it has all broken loose.
Other than that, we have other promotions doing their own thing and offering some pretty entertaining moments as well. BKFC, with the novelty of bare knuckle boxing, has captivated a relatively big audience under its name. Nowadays, the promotion is backed and partially owned by none other than Conor McGregor.
Bare knuckle fighting championship, the alien of combat sport, and may we rise above the night sky and rain down blows viciously on all our deniers, and announce here today that bare knuckle FC has no love for the big glove.
RAF, BKFC, Karate Combat, and other organizations of that type have also become a good venue for fighters at the end of their careers, or even UFC expats looking to extend their time in the spotlight. Mike Perry, who beforehand was just a UFC welterweight journeyman, made the most of this opportunity. Today, Perry is the face of bare knuckle boxing, and this newfound fame has opened the doors for even more lucrative opportunities, like boxing Jake Paul and even facing Nate Diaz at the the upcoming Netflix event. This format also paved the way for influencer fighting. Nowadays, fans don't really need to wonder how their favorite League of Legends streamer would fare in a fight against Dylan Dennis. Chances are they're already putting that match together. Pointless? A bit, but still better than Izzy versus Romero. Nonetheless, if you'd like to follow more fight videos, make sure to hit subscribe. But while influencer fighting thrives on spectacle, the next level features a promotion that focuses almost exclusively on building a true sporting structure. In level 4, we have an organization that has everything to become a powerhouse, but somehow always fumbles before reaching the top. The Professional Fighters League was put together to become the clear second force in MMA. It emerged in 2017 after venture capitalist Don Davis acquired World Series of Fighting and rebranded it into the PFL. Since then, the organization has gone above and beyond to stand out from the endless crowd of fight leagues not named the UFC. With a seasonal format, playoffs, and million-dollar tournaments, the PFL quickly became the most structured and sports-centered promotion in MMA. For a time there, the organization had us convinced that it might actually change the game.
This world is big enough for two leading companies. They were the first leader, but make no mistake, they ain't gonna be the only leader. We do something different, we do something unique, we play our own game. We've gone from 0 employees, 0 fighters, and 0 fans 5 years ago. And we're 50% of their audience today.
Suddenly, it felt like the UFC had someone right on its tail for the first time in years. Athletes choosing to sign with Dana White over another promoter was no longer a sure thing. Backed by Saudi money, the PFL was able to sign guys like Cedric Doumbé and Francis Ngannou, offering even more than what the world's biggest promotion had offered these athletes.
I also think that now that the money's gotten better, you're going to start seeing athletes that would have went to football and baseball and basketball, they're going to stop doing that and saying, hey, these guys are making this much money. Let me try and go over there. Now when they're seeing $1 million paydays in organizations like the PFL, you're like, make $1 million? Like shit, you know?
Right.
And it's just, I think you're going to start seeing some of those athletes that may be a bench warmer in the NFL or maybe a bench warmer in baseball or like having to go through the D-League process or like, man, this, I'm going to go make money over there.
Don Davis and the PFL had everything to succeed, but never truly did. The Ngannou signing turned out to be the biggest case of the PFL shooting itself in the foot. Sure, the organization secured one of the best heavyweights of this generation on its roster for 4 years, but Francis's fight time for PFL is something just over 3 minutes total. Meanwhile, the organization spent millions on him, upping the ante with one of the biggest purses in MMA history, an executive position, and even the chance to spearhead its ambitious Africa expansion. An opportunity Ngannou didn't even bother to show up for. Whether the league really went through financial problems because of that, we don't truly know. What we do know is that the PFL has been on shaky ground as of late, with fighters leaving the organization, some of its biggest stars failing to book a fight for 2 years, and even its now former CEO Don Davis stepping down. So far, it feels like the promotion could have been much greater than it is.
What is the greatest rivalry in PFL history? What is the greatest story in PFL history? Who's the biggest star in PFL history? Who's the biggest personality that they built from the ground up in PFL history? They've been around a long time now, long enough. I think it's 7 or so years since taking over WSOF. The fact that those don't come off the top of the dome are a problem.
Still, there is time for course correction for the PFL. And speaking of ambition, the next promotion has plenty of it to spare. At level 5, we have a league so popular it can rival any fight league in the world in terms of entertainment and viewership. After the death of Pride in 2007, there was a pretty big gap in the Asian market ready to be filled. Organizations like Dream and Ryzen tried to fill that spot, but none have stuck the landing quite like One Fighting Championship. But unlike the likes of UFC and the PFL, MMA is only one part of One's offering.
One of the things that's very interesting about One FC is how they're just really mixing everything up. They've got grappling matches, you know, Mikey Musumeci's over there competing, Gary Tonin, the Rotolo brothers. It's like, it's very wild what they're doing. They're having Muay Thai matches, kickboxing matches.
We had one boxing match, which was for a WBC title. So,
really?
Oh yeah, it was. I believe
boxing gloves.
Boxing gloves, full blown boxing. Like it was a world title fight. that's one of the things I love about One Championship is that they're mixing it up.
This format allows the promotion to tap into all areas of martial arts. Kickboxing and Muay Thai purists will always tune in to watch a Rodtang fight, while grappling fans are sure to tune in and watch the Ruotolo brothers work. On top of that, ONE FC has some of the most exciting events out there. And when talking about MMA rules, many fans actually prefer the organization's approach when compared to most promotions in the West. Unlike the UFC, ONE judges fights as a whole rather than round by round, rewarding aggression and near finishes. Referees also crack down harder on stalling with yellow cards that can even dock a fighter's purse if they fail to engage.
ONE FC rules are really strict on separating the clinch if there isn't enough action. You can't stall in ONE FC, it's not allowed. Should be a rule in the UFC.
Audience-wise, the ONE FC is massive as well. With a steady stream of weekly events and access to one of the world's largest markets, ONE Championship reaches millions of fans across the globe. Forbes values it at $1.3 billion, and as wild as that sounds, its digital viewership has even surpassed the UFC. To many fans, ONE is the undisputable second best promotion out there. But here's the thing, despite ONE's success in Asia, and the PFL's ambitious structure, and every other MMA promotion's best efforts, none of them have truly cracked the code on rivaling the UFC globally. At level 6, we have the most iconic combat sport of the 20th century, boxing. Since the UFC became a thing, they have had one big rival. Dana White and the Fertittas weren't trying to outdo another MMA league because their real target was the entire sport of boxing. Outcompeting or outright acquiring another MMA league was easy for Dana White and the Fertittas. Their actual adversary is and has always been the several boxing promotions out there.
How is that human cockfighting? You know what that is? That's actual fighting. You know what boxing is? Well, boxing is a very limited form of fighting. It's kind of a silly agreement. Say like, we hate each other, we're going to fight, we're going to duke it out man to man, but we're only going to use our hands. That's it. What ultimate fighting is, it's the actual sport of fighting. It encompasses all aspects of fighting: ground game, kicking, punching, elbows, submissions, all the above. That's why it's much more exciting. That's why it's a much more dynamic sport. What boxing is one aspect of mixed martial arts.
And for a time there, the UFC ran laps around boxing. For years, that rivalry seemed one-sided. Boxing was in decline, struggling with fractured promotions and meaningless titles. Meanwhile, the UFC consolidated MMA under one banner and forced its champions to actually defend their belts. But the boxing resurgence led by promoters like Eddie Hearn is making up for the lost time. Saudi money poured into the sport through Turkey Al Sheikh, forcing super fights that rival promoters would never have made on their own.
Because they have, you know, obscene budgets and the opportunity to do whatever they want in the space.
While the UFC hype seems to be on the decline as the McGregors and Habibs of the world start to fade into memory, boxing is now in the best place it's been in years. Suddenly, the fight fans had been begging for started happening. Fury versus Usyk, Canelo versus Crawford, Bivol versus Beterbiev. And leading the charge in the promotional war was Eddie Hearn in Matchroom Boxing. While Top Rank had Fury and Crawford, and PBC controlled much of the American scene, Hearn built Matchroom into boxing's most visible promotional machine.
You're seeing bigger fights, bigger nights, but also more thinking outside the box. And that comes really with spending money. I mean, you look at these promos, you look at the closing of Times Square. You know, this weekend on DAZN, you've got Friday night in Times Square with Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez. 24 hours later, you've got Canelo Alvarez's debut in Saudi Arabia for the Undisputed Championship. That's within 24 hours. You've just coming off the back of 65,000 people at Spurs. You know, July 12th, wherever that's going to be. Like, boxing's on fire right now. On fire. It's controlling all the narrative digitally across social media on a far different level to MMA and UFC right now.
And despite being antagonistic towards boxing for the longest time, today, even Dana White is invested in it through Zuffa Boxing. But even if boxing is surging, Matchroom or any other promotion will never really be able to rival the last level of this list, because internal disputes in the sport will always splinter boxing's power, leaving no single promotion able to match the unified dominance of level 7. The last level is reserved for a single organization so dominant that it has become more popular than the sport itself. There is little to be said about the UFC that isn't common knowledge. For all of boxing's resurgence, all of ONE FC's reach, and all of the PFL's ambition, none of them have what the UFC has: total control. This allows the UFC to be the go-to place for MMA talent, where pretty much all the best fighters in the world compete under the same roof.
There's no secrets here. There's no, there's no politics. the best fight the best here. You know what I mean? One of the big problems with boxing has been you couldn't get the best to fight the best. You know, Riddick Bowe threw his belt in the garbage so that he didn't have to defend it against Lennox Lewis. And so many other things that have happened in the past where we didn't get to see the great fights we wanted to, or we saw them way too late. Here, the best always fight the best. And there's no secret to that here. This didn't just pop up yesterday. This has been the way we run this business for 20 years.
While monopoly accusations are ever present, the sheer grip that the UFC has on the sport allows it to control everything: narratives, matchmaking, and even fighter pay. The latter happens to be one of the biggest criticisms of Dana White and the UFC's business model.
When we get a fighter of that size and magnitude like Anthony Joshua, we'll go, you own the show. So you imagine you said to a star in the UFC, right, it's your show, and we're going to have open book, and you're going to take 80% of the profit of the show, and we take 20%. Imagine how much the UFC fighters will be making. 5, 6, 7 times more than they're making at the moment.
By 2026, the promotion signed a record-breaking deal with Paramount worth $7.7 billion, roughly 4 times larger than the previous deal they had with ESPN. The organization is, in fact, so big that it is directly attached to the sport itself. After all, who hasn't heard someone say they're thinking of training UFC? The Ultimate Fighter Championship is now so large that it is more influential than the fighters themselves. While in other combat sports, guys like Canelo, Joshua, and Crawford are the brands, in MMA, the brand itself eclipses the fighters. And that's why the UFC stands alone at the final level. Not just a promotion, but the definition of fighting in the modern era. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please hit that like and subscribe. And if you want to see how the UFC turned weight cutting into a dangerous ritual, make sure to watch this video next.